be words, but should not be there in the church, because when the church should be, when the Christian church should be, a little bit like heaven, a whole lot like heaven. And so, we should not have confusion in the church, we should have order in the church. It should be like we almost like we do. And because the Almighty God is there, everything is sitting on you, what you do, everything is done the way they did. Because heaven is a real place, and God is the Almighty God. And we have to respect Him, because He's the source of all our praise and honor. So today, we've been talking about this for a while, and everybody knew that as a minister. And you minister to solve what? Huh? Yeah, we should have a gift. We should have gifts of the Spirit. I know we all have one gift. And what gift is that, Jay? Yeah, we all have that gift. But there's 8 other gifts. And some of them in the Old Testament. And these say desire spiritual gifts. And we should have like Paul tell what kind of character you gotta have. And what is that?
You have to have a character that is from 1 Corinthians, we learn out of 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, or Galatians, the 5th chapter. You have to have a personality befitting for the Spirit to give you these gifts. And that personality is, you have to be kind, you have to be meek, you have to be long-suffering, you have to be forbearing one another in love, you have to...
You have to live like the 79, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and now now, who are people? They won't be saved if they can't deny themselves to meet the qualification. The Holy Spirit imparts you these gifts. And so therefore, you just be careless. You might be able to preach, but you don't have any gifts. And one thing we want to hear about, you need gifts of the Spirit. That's how the children of God, you should have gifts. But He cannot give you gifts unless you stand on the qualification of the Holy Ghost. You gotta be right. And nobody only got to have any gifts of power, but you yourself. Nobody's it's a little incriminating, but if you don't have gifts, Paul said this is you don't have gifts. But you want to have gifts, have charity, be long suffering, be kind, don't be so mean, quit being mean. And be like you're a holy person, so that the Holy Spirit will communicate these things to you. And this is what we call power, or we call the anointing. We have the gifts. It's called the anointing. It's called power. Paul said that he preached the gospel fully. What that meant was Paul did not just get up and preach and for 2 hours and then just sit down. When Paul got to preach, he preached 2 hours. He also demonstrated the power of God for 2 hours. In other words, not 2 hours, extra hours, but he confirmed the word he preached, the signs, wonders, and miracles. Who gets to the Spirit? Paul preached all night one time. Man fell down and broke his neck. What happened? Paul was ready to make him dead. Because he had that kind of power. But we see in the church now, we see a lot of preaching. But we don't see the power. We don't see the power. We see a lot of preaching. People can get up and preach for a whole hour. They preach good, sound good, but they don't have the power. They can't even laugh at it. And so, I think what the Spirit is telling us in the church is the right direction. We need this in Spirit to reveal. Reveal all the nation. So, now today, There's 9 gifts. Go ahead, Sister, you know what 9 gifts are? On the Holy Ghost.
My gifts are vocal gifts, which is speaking in tongues, interpretation of tongues, and prophecy. And you have the mind gifts, which is word of wisdom, word of knowledge, and discerning of the spirits. Power gifts is the gift of healing, gift of miracles, gift of faith.
It's the same thing, is, you have these gifts, again, this other realm, you have, Satan has principalities. And they also have, you have principalities, powers, spiritual and rules in high places. You have even spirits that have more authority than other people spiritually. And so, with us, everybody in the church, you can have power, but somebody else can have more power than you. If you just speak in tongues and prophesy, the person who has the word of knowledge, gets the word of wisdom, they have more power than you do. What God has honored that person. And it has something to do with the way you think. He says, mind gives that means the way you think. Power gives means concentration. And vocal gifts mean you can judge them. He would tell you you need to judge both of these stuff. It takes less of an anointing to do it, and less dedication. What I want to do today is I want to just look in the Word of God. See, you can identify when you read the Word of God. When we've been on these lessons, Ephesians and Corinthians, see if you can identify these gifts. And if you can't identify it, it might be an indication that you have the gift. You should pray more about that gift because you can begin to recognize it. And you won't be able to see it in a ministry. I mean, can you recognize the gifts of the Spirit when you did big operating? And to get the word of knowledge, get the word of wisdom, get to discern the spirits. You know, when you see it in operation, can you say to yourself, oh, that person has that gift? Or you just go by and say, oh, you just give yourself, oh, that's a gift I have. And then you ask yourself, what gift do you have? You have any gift. If you have a gift, you can say, I'm going to help build up church in God International, or rebuild. If you don't have no gifts, you might say, why don't I have no gift? I've been designing gifts. Maybe you've been designing gifts. Maybe you've been flowing the gifts and stuff you can't really identify. So what we really need to do, we need to really, I think, look in the Word of God and see His gifts in operation. And when I read gift 1, and I see what is operating in the gifts. I said, oh, that's the good. That. So what we're going to do today is we look in St. John, the 8th chapter. I'm see if we can, and we're going to use Jesus right now. The 7 gifts comes with knowledge. You have to have a knowledge of the Word of God. And that discernment, but you got to know the Word of God and discernment. And that's the 8th chapter I'm running. So let's go to the 3rd chapter. That's where my text is coming from. This morning is the 8th chapter of St. John. Let's go to the 3rd chapter of St. John. This gives us a little reference information. Yeah, let's get about how to discern now. Okay, St. John 3, 16, 17, 18, so that we get them.
15, 16, 17?
No, 3, 16, 17,
I started 3 and 16. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved.
Okay, that's good. 3:16 talks about God, right? This case is talking about, it's not talking about Jesus, right? It's talking about the Father. And so we know that God and Jesus are not the same person. Our doctrine, Christian God, we believe that God is the Father, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. They're not the same. And it says, for God so loved the world, what? Can God love? I don't think we can hate.
Yes, sir.
Okay, he loved the world so much that he gave his own begotten Son. And who is his own begotten Son?
It's Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Okay, but it says, and whosoever believe on him shall not perish but have everlasting life. But God sent not, and then it goes on the next verse, in 17 says, that God sent not his Son in the world to do what?
Condemn the world.
In other words, when Jesus first came, he talked about his first advent. When he was born of the Virgin Mary. The first time Jesus came, he did not come to condemn. What does it mean to condemn?
It means to
The
judge.
judge. So the first time when Jesus come, he didn't come in his mind, he come to do his Father's will. And his Father's will was not to judge people when he first came. But what did he say?
But that the world through him might be saved.
Yes. So the first time Jesus come, God did not send Jesus to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. So whoever believes on God, you have to believe in Jesus in order to have everlasting life. So we understand one thing, the thesis that we have to read in St. John. God did not send his Son in the world to do what? And all of you have been in school, been in college, we should never see it from all of St. John that Jesus was condemning somebody. Because what's his thought?
God did not condemn us.
In other words, God did not send Jesus in the world to condemn. He didn't say, go judge. But I'll tell you this, there was a time when he will judge. You got to keep the dispensation of times right. The first time that Jesus come, he did not come to condemn. So when you read in the rest of the book of St. John, you will never find out where Jesus condemned somebody. He may have condemned sin. He condemned sin by the way he lived. The way he carried himself. That's how you condemn sin. Okay, now let's go, so I want you to feel about, even when you're reading, Jesus did not come to condemn the world. And you never see Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John when Jesus condemns somebody, judging them. You know, for their sins and casting in the air. He didn't do that. Also, let's look in James 3:13, talks about wisdom. You have to have a working knowledge of the Word of God in order to be all these gifts to work together. Because the gifts also work with the Word of God. You should be having gifts and don't have no knowledge of the Word of God. That's not good. There might be another spirit.
Yes, sir.
James 3:13. Who is a wise man,
Who's a wise man? Who has given wisdom among you?
and use knowledge among you? Let him shoot out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom.
That's that word, what? Meekness. And that's part of the character, am I right? So a wise man should have meekness. And you've been studying on that word meekness for a while. You're not venture and you're not meek. Well,
But if ye have there envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the church, against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above,
when you have what? bitter envy. And you know, Paul talks over the Corinthians, among babes in Christ, that's what envy and strife, bitter envy. You shouldn't be having no bitter envy among your brothers and sisters. And even Paul writes over in the book of Ephesians that we wrestle not against what? Flesh and blood. Flesh and blood is your brothers and sisters in the church. They're not fighting against one another. And when you see somebody fighting against one another, you know they're really see in the image which they might be saved, they may speak in tongues, and they may be on their way to heaven, but they need to go. They need to go, they need time to go. And even they have taken 3 years, they need 3 more years. They need to go. Because there's something they're missing. They're not understanding who their real enemy is. Well,
But it's earthly, sensual, and
Sensual.
devilish.
that's that wisdom from the, so earthly, there's 2 kinds of wisdom. There's wisdom from above, and that's wisdom from below. And the wisdom from below is still a what? What she just read. It's sensuous, and what else? Devilish,
Earthly.
earthly. Okay, and then goes on down and talks about another wisdom that comes from above. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
read from
But the wisdom that is from above is first pure,
pure,
then peaceable,
peace.
gentle,
That's it. There's that word chapter in Paul's writings over the Galatians, am I right?
and easy to be entreated,
Easy to be intrigued, you can talk to the person. You don't have to have all night and get to figure out what mood they're in today. You
full of mercy
know,
and good fruits, without partiality
that what, how to,
and without hypocrisy.
okay.
And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
Okay. Now let's go to the 8th chapter, St. John. Is there a Holy Spirit, is she still sick?
Yes, sir. To support me.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's wrong with
I'm not sure.
her? You never said?
You never told me that she was just not feeling well.
Okay. Being new, you got to vaccinate.
Yes, sir.
They got so much stuff. Roll around, you got to be very good. That's a whole week. When you know you start going to be sick for a week, 2 weeks, you can work on that. Okay, let's read. You got understand what we're gonna do today? Okay. We're gonna see if you can identify the gifts of the Spirit. And once you see one in operation, I want you to just speak out. Not just speak out, but if you raise your hand, I might be seeing it right now. Okay, let's start.
St. John 8th chapter, start at verse 1.
Yeah.
Jesus went into the Mount of Olives. And early in the morning,
Are you in St. John 8th chapter?
8:1,
Okay.
and early in the morning, he came again into the temple.
Yeah, he went to the Mount of Olives, is that all right? What you think he was doing at Mount of Olives? Huh?
Praying.
Praying. All right, so you know you're gonna have gifts of the Spirit, you got to discern, am I right? Paul said desire spiritual gift. Where you desire spiritual gifts at? But if you don't pray, you're not really desiring spiritual gifts. You just can't, it's all right to desire spiritual gifts rather than freeway. But you really need to get on your knees and go to God and desire spiritual gifts. In other words, you pray to God for this. You gotta let him know you want him. You know, when Jesus comes back,
And early in the morning, he came again into the temple. And all the people came unto him.
yes, and can't get.
And he sat down.
He was on grass with.
And taught them. And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery.
Then we see another group of people come in, right? We see Jesus, that's right? We see a lot of people coming, that he was teaching, that's right? And so, and then now we see the scribes and the Pharisees, so we know that Jesus really is, all right? And you, if they come you know, they got something against me, and it's not me. And you they come, they bring a woman. Okay, let's see.
And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery.
Oh, taking adultery. So he was teaching every time he come down, he was in the synagogue, and they brought this woman, she been called an adultery. You know what adultery is, all right? All right? Yes, it's sex, and so you can see, even during Jesus' time, people was committing adultery. People was committing adultery, at least when Jesus was around. And so about this woman, she committed adultery. But don't forget now, St. John 3 says what, Jacob?
3?
Yeah.
John 3. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
What did his son not come to the world to do?
Oh, Jesus did not come to condemn.
He did not come to be us to judge.
Yes,
Then they bring this woman to Jesus, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they are leaders in the church too, am I right? And they should judge and take care of certain things that go on. So they bring to Jesus while he was teaching. They go on.
And when they had set her in the midst,
And then they brought her right into the midst. Here Jesus is teaching. All of a sudden they interrupt Jesus' service. Bring a woman, Pastor Saul, right in front. Don't you think that's very rude? What you said? That was very rude, that right? They could have dealt with that in a different way. So you can already see who's in operation. Can you see he's in operation?
the
The
principality.
devil is, because he's in true number, right? He's in true number, he's in service. When we be having services and people be moving around and doing all that, it just might be, not all the time. But a lot of times, there's even spirits trying to distract. And those people are what Jesus teaching. Let's read in the church, we try to say sometimes. You know, you gotta know when to go to the bathroom and when not to. And we were at a meeting and this been on where you sat there. You sat on the front row and said, Dr. Black's preaching, he's really getting into it, he's getting some very important facts. You should really gotta go to the bathroom. You should wait till you get a little break when you just get where you don't check everybody who thought he listened to you. Because babes in Christ, what they will do sometimes, any movement they go on, they follow it. And they lose their thought. Don't get Jesus teaching, man. Jesus teaching, you know everybody's paying attention. When you come to these Pharisees and Sadducees, I will with a woman, calling adultery. In the very act, you said in the very act. Now that's a great word, isn't that right? In the very act. And here they come bringing now, no.
They say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act.
And they done it in front of everybody. They brought the poor lady down there. She done already got caught. And she was getting men adultery, that meant what, jail? This is all. This is all.
And she was born I'm lost.
And she had a husband.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Majority of the time when you want to get virginity, it's a man doing that, right? Just calling you being like that. But we see here, the woman had got caught. Now, how she got caught, that's another story too. And they come to Jesus, and so Jesus gonna need some gifts. He just can't lead to his own intellect down right. Because he's not careful, he could end up just like some of us. What was some people you know we did? A big argument gonna get started. And you can say, why you didn't you on my service? No doubt Jesus felt like that, but Jesus knew who the rest is. That was a daughter, son, right? It was an intrusion on that service. Here she is, you can imagine how she looked. her all the way. She didn't tell her to take no bath. She didn't have no time to go to the bathroom, make up. They called the bread. You know what I'm saying? About it was, I want to know, how you gonna catch somebody in the bread? If you're a man or woman of God, how do you know where to go get somebody in the bread? A commitment. Now, what is that called?
But when you catch somebody in
Is
the
that a gift out? You need a gift.
yeah, that's it. Not from,
But when you didn't think like that, it has to be a gift. That's how it works. You say, where's the man?
Where you setting up.
So that's a gift. That's a gift of what? I'm asking y'all, okay, y'all was trying when you read the Bible.
discernment
Discernment.
Discernment is
Discernment is, where's the man? And when they said, you call him in the bread, you said in the bread, when you come in the bread, you should have both. And you was right. And one thing about it, Jesus did not come to do what, Jalen? He didn't come to jail. They were trying to get him to do something he didn't come to do. It was part of his mission. Okay, so they got it. Go on.
Now Moses, in the law,
Now here they come to Jesus. They gonna bring the Bible and say, now you know Moses in the law. They law keepers. Why didn't they judge him? What else you said? Why didn't they carry him to somebody else?
another synagogue,
No, no, listen, why you bring him to where he had his son? You could have went there and said, oh, he's busy. Maybe we need to carry him to the rabbi somebody else. No, they bring where Jesus where all the people were. They no doubt was jealous and enemies. They got a little wisdom too. It's coming from the need. Keep going.
Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned.
That's such a piece of stone. Why did you stone? You got to do it. You preaching Jesus. And they come in and tell you, in front of, don't get now. He's in front of every, what does Jesus do? He's teaching.
He speaks to the people.
And they watch it, am I right? And they form their opinions. And you don't know why they're coming to Jesus. But Jesus got his own. I know Jesus thinking in his mind, why y'all coming to you? That's not in my jurisdiction. I didn't come to judge nobody. But the law did. And the law said you should be put to death. No.
But what sayest thou?
So what do you say? Did that intrusion, did it merit that kind of intrusion into his service? Bring a woman, get caught in adultery. And what the stuff, what Jesus probably talking on was not no adultery. He's probably talking on something good so they can get healed, probably talking down from heaven. He come down from heaven, and he will come to condemn nobody. You see anything in Jesus' personality? This is a Christian education online.
We see that he's kind.
He's kind. He's a kind man, right? And they're what?
And we evil.
And they judge you too, right?
Critical.
And they use the Bible. Like a lot of people that use the Bible, they just immediately out say, this is church said, this church said. This is a mean message. But don't say about she shouldn't be got caught. She should belong to a good church. Am I right? She belonged to a good church where they had a good moments department because they could have told her what Paul told Timothy. What did he tell Timothy, Sister Paul? No, he said, yeah, he did. He said, tell the age women, you know what? Let's find that. Paul told Timothy, that's when you need mature women in the church. Her probably, she probably go to church, I don't know. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. We have it over Timothy. Like Timothy, third chapter, Christian, 17. If you can't find it real quick, that means you haven't read it. You need to read it more, so you can be able to be more acquainted with it. You have it? Pass on to the aged women. No, it's in Timothy. Paul said to Timothy to teach the aged women, because Timothy was a young man. And he couldn't really be teaching these older women certain things. He probably had knowledge, but he just couldn't look at it. With a 17-year-old boy, he teaches a 50-year-old woman, certain things. That's when you need to have strong women departments in the church. Y'all can't find it?
It has the one that says, but that's not, I'm looking for that's not the one that says the age, when it says, in like manner,
Titus,
that's right. It says,
Titus 2, verse 3.
Good. I was wrong.
The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becoming holiness, not false accusers.
So the aged women gotta be what? Not false accusers? What else?
Not false accusers, not giving too much wine,
Wine,
teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober.
so the old women in the church might teach the young women to be what? Sober. Because young women are what? Now, it don't say how old is from the world, but she went to sober worship. But she got caught committing adultery. And so a lot of young women in this day and time, they don't see no wrong with it. You may be mad, you get me or whatever, and then you go out and do something you got no business doing. This is you need to belong to a good church. And you need the old women in the church, you need to be sober. A lot of these young girls are not sober. When you're 23 and 24 years old, you don't really have these things. Compared to somebody who's 50, something like that. You make bad decisions. You make emotional decisions. You still immature in life. You get married, you feel like, I don't know what the girl feel. You get married, you feel like he don't treat you right, He might have been running on you, you paying him back. All this stuff goes on with me. But she got caught. And keep it what else?
To love their husband.
They love their husband. Young girls like that, but the old women don't love their husband. They can't tell the young women how to love them. That's some of these old women that we try. Like like people. Love your husband. This is they love their husband, they love their own husband.
Love their husband.
Love their husband. So what should the old women in the church do? So, the old women. You know who the old women is, all right? Who?
The elders.
No, you. In the Jewish station, you. In the church, you. Because you don't find too many women older than you. Not that you're old, it just so happened that right now, maybe a mistake. And the church didn't allow our ladies to get older and older. But years ago, that average age in the church didn't go to 30, 35 years old. So if you was 40, that made you an old woman. And so that responsibility fell in your lap. But now we have older women. So really, you have these young girls. It's your responsibility. I'm not a mom. No, you are a sister in the Lord. And they will listen. need to tell them? What do you need to tell them? That's another one, of them, right? Evidently, this lady didn't love her husband, did she? No, she really needed, somebody, you need to love your husband. And when you love your husband, you don't be called Dutch with another name. All right? Was the lady wrong? Yeah, she got caught, didn't she? And Amy said the first time she done it, didn't you? Well,
To love their children.
love your children. These girls, they need to love their husband, they need to love their own children, am I right? Yeah, sometimes they love themselves so much, they get their nails done, they can't even pay their kids. They ain't even clean their house up. You know, athletes doing all this, gonna take them money. That's just, it went on then, it goes on now. Well,
To be discreet.
be discreet, young lady, a woman need to be discreet. You know how you conduct yourself, how you carry yourself, how you sit, even how you eat. You should not be enticing, in the way you dress. A saved woman, and she's married to a man, she should not be wearing clothes that's enticing to another man, not her. You gotta know what I'm talking about. A saved woman, spirit filled, tongue speaking, woman have gifts. It's the same way she dresses. She should not be dressed, even though she had all that. She's married, she should dress like a married woman. And a worldly man should be able to look at you and tell that you're not promiscuous. And you're not looking for no compliments. And when you're going to get certain kind of uncomfortable, they put it up, they're looking for a compliment. You should not have to walk down the street with your wife. She's showing all the and the unclothes. She's advertising. And then the man let her do it, he ain't going to pay him, but who won't do that? A saved woman should look like a saved woman. But somebody got to teach you that, right? I think he read.
James, keepers at home.
Oh, geez, that's a great big, that's a keepers at home. That's a great big, I both got 2 jobs. I got to work, you got to work too. Some of these women don't make no bed up, they don't cook, don't know how to cook. I like getting married. You got to teach these young girls how to cook, right? You got to tell young girls, you got to cook, baby. Men don't want no McDonald's 4 times a week. What you gotta do is if you gotta work, you gotta still come home and cook. Still got obligation. But you know, you get a whole lot of you be like these young people, I'm gonna cook. Go have Sam's and get a very big old pot of macaroni and cheese. I guess do that and eat for a week. And you talking about you're not happy. You can't desire those spiritual gifts. You've been happy in your marriage. You don't desire those spiritual gifts. Because you spend all your time traveling. It was some reason. And I don't know. And maybe you just had to. You have when you read your Bible, you have to read your meditation. What got this woman where she was? She felt like she had to commit it. Something had to give her that. We think convinces all.
I don't know, could be a lot. Her husband wouldn't treat her right.
But if your husband don't treat you right, is that any way, is that, if your husband don't treat you right, is that a cause for you to go after them?
No, nothing. No. I don't think there's anything that should cause you to go up to this. If you just.
If he's beating, the best thing is just leave
Leave
him.
him up, that's right.
I ain't going to jail. He ain't really bad. You just come your day, all right? You ain't worried about the other, you ain't worried about football. Is the season almost over?
It is over.
Oh, okay, so you ain't worried. What reason do you think this woman may have done what she done?
She could have been unhappy with her husband. Husband could have not been paying her no attention. You know, a lot of times women do it because, and in those days, you know, they had more than one wife. Maybe he had a couple wives, and she was just one of the wives, and, you know.
One among you just said one night.
Okay.
At that time, I think with Jesus.
Okay.
And how many Jesus ever teaching too much on, polygamy during his time?
And so, she could, you know, most of the time when a woman goes out there with her husband, it's more emotional, because her emotional needs are getting met. But, you know, a man is more from the physical point of view. Like a man, most of the time, they cheat just because physically, you know, they just be caught up in the moment. But most of the time when a woman steps out on her husband, because her emotional needs are not being met, and she finds another person who meets those needs, and that's how she most of the time ends up in something.
That's, you think that in this situation?
It could be that there are some women also that maybe their husband also is meeting that needs, but they're just like that. They can't just stay with one man.
You gotta have one man.
So it's just like whatever her husband would do for her, she never gets satisfied. It's just
She never said.
she's never satisfied.
So we got this situation on our hands, though. She done got caught by religiously. You know what I'm saying? Israel, religion and the law go together. So they caught you religiously committing fornication, you could be put to death. Adultery. Let's see what takes place.
I'm at the 8th chapter 6 verse. This they said, tempting him.
Oh, now this when you read the Bible, this they done doing what? Why did they do all this?
It was a temptation.
They were trying to tempt him. They wouldn't be concerned about the woman being committing adultery. They were trying to tempt Jesus. They was after him. So what do we learn from that? What do we read from earlier? What kind of wisdom is this?
Devilish.
The devils. You gotta know what scripture. And so the devil Jesus needs to give us the spirit of it. Okay. We're gonna know one thing, Jesus, once he's done, he's not gonna blow up. They're trying to
Tempt him.
get him somebody tries to make you angry.
Provoke you.
Provoke you. I think the Paul talking about you not easy to provoke.
He got easy to provoke you.
Then she said, well, all these people, here they come, and he gets discerning in the spirit that they come to tempt him. How do you know that? What gift?
To the gift of discerning the spirit.
They come to him. Wouldn't it be so nice for you to know that when the devil's trying to tempt you, you need gifts? People try to say, oh, what you need to do, they don't let you preach in your church, so you need to come to my church, I'll let you preach more. They're trying to tempt you. And you need to be able to discern that. One time, there was this lady, she had spirit of divination. And Paul was going, he was down in, I think, I'm not sure. He was getting ready to go to where this lady, she's named Lydia. And he go put many of the men that went with him. All there with him. And this girl come out, and she said, get in jail. And they said, she kept saying, oh, that great man of God. Y'all know the story now. What did Paul do?
Rebuke that devil.
What kind of gift did Paul have? That was discerning spirits. Sometimes when people are trying to, they might be saying the truth to you. All the time, they're up to something different. And you should be able to discern. And you say to yourself, why did you discern what they was doing to you? You need the gifts of the Spirit. And God knows, some of us in CLG, we need to get to the spiritual, right? And then some stuff they be talking about why they went back into the world. We had to get discernment through a day. But you don't have to get to discernment spirit. They can put a wall on you guys, especially if you're obeying Christ. Paul cast that devil that day, and she lost the power. And then they had him and Silas put in jail. Evil spirits got upset. And they started people up in the city, they had Paul and Silas put in jail. So Jesus needs discernment, right? Yes, because worldly wisdom is coming against him. But Jesus did not come in the world to condemn. They were really after Jesus. They wanted him to stop preaching.
This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him.
Oh, they want to accuse him of something. Oh, they want to accuse him. Do people still do that? Yeah, but it looked like they was bringing Jesus, this woman to Jesus for some kind of judicial information, advice. But they was bringing a woman to Jesus to find out, they wanted to find something to accuse him of. You know?
But Jesus stooped down,
Jesus stooped down, didn't
and with his finger wrote on the ground,
he?
as
Do
though,
you think this is a gift?
yes, sir.
What makes you think it might be?
It's a combination.
What?
He's using the gift of wisdom
Wisdom?
along with the gift of discernment, because whatever he's writing, he has to discern to know exactly, because we don't know what he wrote. Nobody knows what he wrote. But he had to discern, because he had to know something about them. The wisdom of it, the wisdom of the technique, wisdom was more the technique that he used to resolve the matter. That was the wisdom. By right on the ground. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he heard them not.
And Jesus, they were going to get him. He was in front of all people down there. And they were trying to get the people to quit listening to Jesus. He was always around to try to get you to quit listening to the word of God. Anything that's going to help you. He seems to be a demon, but that these demons are working through and influencing the Pharisees and Sadducees. And they're supposed to be men and women of God. When the devil wants you to know something, he got to express it through somebody.
Yes, sir.
When he wants you to know something, he got to express it through somebody. So this is the devil that right? We don't, it had to be principalities and powers. But you knew you were wrestling against, but he had to be yours. So this is the devil. And they were in front of everybody was watching. See how Jesus is going to react, am I right? So Jesus right on the ground, let them do all the talking. Okay, keep going. And probably sometimes we don't know what it's like. The preacher said, give big son that. I like to hear it sometimes when they say this. But I'm sure one time he was saying, especially all the men, how do you know where to find them committing adultery? Because a man of God don't know where to find people who commit adultery. If you ask me, what could I find some places that commit adultery? I couldn't even tell you, because I don't know. I don't go to places like that. And the closest place I go to is a place by the laundromat over in this is called, what's that thing? This is by Toyota place.
It's called something world, Evo's world or something like that.
And in Germany, you know, this is how prostitution is legal. You know that? Yeah. And so right here, and years ago, if the strip going by Black Milk Club, you could go out there and they would stand on the street. And over about Boboing, they used to have like
Little campers.
little campers, and they'd be out on the street. It was just legal. That's the only way I can tell you, but boy, me going somewhere and tell you, you know, you actually said, you should get somewhere to go get some dope. I don't want to go get no dope back. Because I don't want no dope back. You said, can you tell me get all that? Yeah, go just right in the store, go to the store and all that. But said, God, I tell you, where to go find you no woman there. So Jesus had to have a gift of discernment, and the Holy Spirit in him. He was very sensitive to the Holy Spirit. He was very sensitive. Because they were Pharisees and Sadducees, and the people believed in them. They like had a lot of books among the people. You know?
But Jesus stood down, okay, on the ground. And so when they continued asking him,
They just kept on living.
he lifted up himself and said unto them, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her.
And what gift did she give there? That we give the word of knowledge.
That's what he is. Every word of knowledge too.
Yeah, I would give, the other gifts would together. But it's a gift. I just want you to be able to identify. He said, what doing in of himself, he had gifts. He said, you didn't not saying you cast the first stone. He said, you is not guilty. You would have done it, you cast the first stone this war. You're not gonna get rid of it. And the people was watching, all right?
And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning to
I don't know who was on the council made a meeting.
because they was probably over there themselves committing adultery.
We have to assume that. But we know they had a gift down, right? Okay, go on.
Even unto the last.
And
And Jesus was left alone.
some people preaching Jesus left alone with the woman. No, you have to read the whole thing. He's not left alone with the whole woman. He's left alone with the one, alone with her accusers. But the group that he was teaching that morning was still there. And they were watching. They were watching everything Jesus goes on. I guess almost like a soap opera. Do y'all understand? Okay, now Jesus got accusers out of life. I want to tell y'all this too. Sometimes, what God got to do is, some people who don't mean you no good. He knows what you might get. God loves you. He gets it out of your life. You might not like the way that God gets it out of your life, but God will get it out of your life. Because he knows they don't mean you no good. He will get it out of your life. You might have to shed tears. And you might have to cry. And you might have to stay up late at night till you get it out of your life. You thought something happened there. If they were that way, can you go your way? Because they don't mean you no good. Because you special needs. Jesus got these people out of his life. She made a bad mistake. But she did have a good and honest heart. Sometimes people are good and honest hearts do some stupid stuff. And Jesus did not come to condemn. He said, I didn't come to condemn you. He said, I'm not going to start now. But God was going to time he's going to condemn. But when you read the Bible, that was not the time. That's when he didn't condemn. It was the time. We got time to say, we got time for death and hell, false prophets and the beast. It's coming. So you tell like it's not coming to something. God got time. And sometimes God got to get people out your life. Don't mean you know good. And sometimes it takes you a while to appreciate him for that. God had to get people out of my life. And sometimes people just leave the church. That is God out your life. I said it over and over again. Okay, no. Keep reading.
When Jesus lifted up himself, now Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst,
He was not alone. Just with you and her.
you know,
But some people preach wrong. They don't read the whole story. They can read that scripture right there. And they start preaching from that. And make it look like Jesus is gone before. That's when you got to read the Bible yourself. You got crooked, slick preachers out here. You got to read from the beginning. But you take out that morning, there was plenty of money. Yeah.
when Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine
He
accusers?
says, what are you accused of?
She said, no, have no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord.
Ain't nobody ain't accusing me no more. I mean, she was that.
She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee.
So I didn't come for that.
Go.
So I'm not condemning you. But he said, do what?
Go and sin. No, go and sin no more.
He said, go and sin no more. He said, it's not that I'm going along with what you done was wrong. He said, go and sin no more. He said, I didn't come to condemn. They were trying to tempt him so they could accuse him. But when Jesus got through with him, they got condemned. One by one. And so he's dealing with the woman, now he's going to deal with the crowd. Because the crowd is still there, they look watching that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to know what they watching everything. I bet you they were taking some notes too.
Then spake Jesus again unto them,
Then Jesus turns around and speaks to people. They are really truly
saying, I am the light of the
I
world.
am the light of the world.
He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness.
He said, if you follow me, you learn from this woman right here. If you follow me, you won't get what she will win. He said, if you follow me, you won't get into darkness. He said, I am the light of the world. He said, she would have followed me, she never would have got in that situation. He said, I am the light of the world. If you follow Jesus, you won't walk. You follow because you walk in darkness. If you walk in darkness, you can't see where you're going.
He that shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life.
She have the light of life. He said, if you follow me, you'll never have to worry about following me. He said, you should have the light of life. He said, I am the light of the world. So, how many people you see this morning there was an operation?
You have the gift of discernment of spirits.
Yes. You think he'd have been successful without the gifts?
No, sir.
No. Do we need the gifts?
Yes, sir.
If the Son of God need the gifts, we need the gifts too. And if you were able to recognize and reading some gifts, well, maybe you might have that gift. And maybe you might want to apply it. And when you pray more about that gift. If the gift is on the spirits, pray about that. And we know like gift, the power gifts, they have to themselves. Like healing the faith and miracles. When a miracle happens, it happens, it's God's power. It takes dedication. You gotta give up certain things in order to have the gifts. And the main thing you gotta give up is what? Yourself. Yourself. Salvation is free, but the power is not. You gotta pay a price for the gifts. Let's give up yourself. And most people don't want nobody changing them. I like the way I am. If I gotta change for the gifts, I'm not gonna change. I like being me. Some people like being me. Some people like me and Sammy. That's when they don't change. But you know, we don't change, so we love ourselves. It's like some people, they just like, it'll make them mad, they're not gonna get no vaccine. That's the way they are. And you're not gonna make it. And one thing that you need to learn, you can't make people do nothing. You know why? Because God can't make you do nothing. But sometimes we're the very people, we try to make other people do stuff, but God can't make you do nothing. I don't know if I make you do nothing. You can't make me do nothing. I don't know this, I don't want to do. I just being stubborn. That would hit you and you annoy. Who you give your members to, that's who you are serving others. You want to have the gifts of the Spirit to build the church up. The Lord that day saved that young woman from having the gifts. She was in a terrible situation. That day had started out pretty bad. She thought it was going to start out pretty good. But what if the kids run the world they want to be? I think sometimes we just got to ship. Alex wanted to see vision.
Gotta say it.
Jay, you got anything you want to add there? What did you get from?
The main thing I got is that, we need to start seeing ourselves in the gifts. We need to go back and look in the scripture that you had to do today, where you want us to see if we can recognize the gifts, in the scriptures that the preacher, in this case, Jesus is using. And then you said that if we can see what gifts are being manifested, then we might have that gift. So then we need to exercise it, practice it, but also ask the Lord a desire for it as well. And you said it's good to be thinking about yourself using the gifts whenever you're driving, whenever, in your free time. But where we desire the spiritual gifts the most is when we're on our knees in prayer. And that's what we need to do the most. We need to be on our knees and praying, because that's when we get the real power. That's when we get strength and everything like that. Is when we pray. So that's the main thing.
Are you going to need gifts?
Yes, sir.
You going to need gifts to do some of this?
Yes, sir.
You know where that, all right? You have other young people. That's why we should get into a lot of young people, all young people. If you have gifts of the Spirit, they follow. Sister Hall?
One thing that was impressed upon me is something you said, totally at the beginning, was, in order for me to receive the gift of the Spirit, I need to let go of myself. And I'm the only one that's holding me back from receiving.
You know?
In order for me to get the gifts that I see as I'm reading in the scriptures, I need to let go of myself and not be more, not, think that it's me, but that it's the Lord that gives me.
You need to get stuff you got to stay on that.
Okay?
What gives you think you might need stuff,
I know when you get discernment of spirit, I know that. I've been praying for word of wisdom.
Yeah. You don't need them all.
Yes, sir.
It's better work with people, you work with. You don't need it. Ms. Grace?
Today, we talked about, guys, today is, we talk about the gifts of the Spirit, but today we had to see, it's good to talk about the gifts. That's just the knowledge. You have the knowledge of the gifts of the Spirit, which we've been learning, Bishop Wagner teaching, you've been teaching us. We've been talking about, it's one thing to have a knowledge of something, and it's another thing to apply it. And one way it can help us is we need to watch those who have gifts, or even watch in the church when certain situations happen, how the gifts of the Spirit are in operation and how they're being used, and you have to be able to identify it. It's like when you go to school, you go to college, you learn, you get a lot of knowledge, but then you have to go into a job, and then you have to apply the knowledge that you learned. And so now we want to be able to get into being able to see how the gifts are being used through the service. Sometimes, because the gifts are constantly in operation with those who have the gifts. And so one thing we want to do, we want to be able to identify it. If you make a certain decision, you might do something this, you might make this decision, you might say this, you might do this during the service, but it is just the gifts of the Spirit in operation. Or even when problems or situations arise, you see the gifts in operation there. You might be in a business meeting, and you need gifts of the Spirit even in a business. Well, probably you need gifts of the Spirit more in a business meeting than you do in the service, I think. But in everything you do, you need the gifts. The gifts are just not for, yes, they're for the service, but sometimes like in the prayer line, we think, well, the gifts is just for, when I get up and preach, and I pray, yes, that's the gift. But you need gifts in many different situations in the church when things arise. Even in, like, if you're planning for something, you need the gifts because you need to say, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get this done? What's the best thing here? What's the best thing here? Those are also the gifts of the Spirit. And so you want to understand how the gifts are constantly in operation in every area of the ministry, including, of course, when you preach and you're preaching the gospel fully. Like you were saying earlier, we have to be like Paul. We want to not be like. We want to use Paul as an example of someone who he preached the full gospel, and that's what Bishop White is always teaching us. You teaching us, and we just need to come to the conclusion that we need to rebuild the Church of the Living God with the gifts of the Spirit, and that's going to require myself. I'm not talking about nobody else, but a lot of self-denial, because that's where the problem lies. It's in me. The reason I don't have gifts is because I'm not applying myself. I'm not denying myself. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And that's why I don't have the gifts. And you can operate in the gift. But we've been learning, you may operate in something, doesn't mean you have the gift. It's not a constant. We want to get to the place where we can constantly flow in the gifts. And you want to be known as a
twice a year.
Yes. No. You want to be known as when the people need to be built up and they need to be edified. When you go to a meeting, you're known as one of the. Yeah, you want. That's really when you have a gift. Yes, sir.
You have a heart to get you that man.
Yeah.
You know that man. You know it's bad. How did you do it?
And even like in every area of the service as a musician, you need to have the gifts. Even in your praise and worship, you need to have it. You need to know what song to sing, when to sing it. Maybe you have the Spirit makes maybe a need, and even in the service, the person, if you have the gifts of the Spirit, you can meet the needs of the people, even in the praise and worship. I seen one time Bishop White, his gift of healing operated when he was singing. When Sister Brittany, the baby was in her womb, and we was at the jurisdiction meeting at that time, and Bishop White just started singing a song, and when he started singing the song, the baby began to move. He was singing, but the gift of the Spirit was in operation. Even as this was singing, the gift of healing was working. So that's what you want to get to, the point that you have the gifts that whatever thing is
More like special.
yes, sir. But you want to be able to be able to
Spirit is gospel, special tribe, tribulation.
yes, sir. Yeah. But as you say, we need more. The one thing that made the early church strong, and what we want to use, I guess, I want to say, we should use as our model is the early church. The church when the Holy Ghost first fell, there was a lot of people in the church that had the gifts of the Spirit. Even in Paul's time, because with Paul and Barnabas, and they were praying and fasting and ministry, there was numerous people. It was just not, okay, one or two people here, one or two people here. You had a lot of people who had the gifts of the Spirit. And that's why you really see the power of God was moving more, because more people who had the gifts, the more the power will move. So that's what we need in this last and evil day. We just need more people with the gifts of the Spirit. And it starts with me personally. That's where it starts with. Because the only one you can really, worry about when it comes to the gifts is yourself. You can tell people that hey, they need them, but it's their personal choice.
That's what you find somebody, and they mean, and, they're not on, so they short term. See, they give what really.
That might think that the power that they are using to, perform those miracles are not from above. It could be from below. Because according to the Word of God, Paul is saying that we have to follow after charity. And having all these characteristics, and you are still performing all these kinds of miracles, that brought a whole lot of thought in my mind. Where are you getting this power from? And especially what you're teaching also brought a whole lot of question in my mind. Where did you get this very gift from?
And the man, he worked a miracle. And then you said, I almost tell you all, they want to speak to you after church. You be wondering, that's not a spirit. It's not. So the church didn't God. We're learning the same. There's no way over in Corinthians, they could have had the gifts of the spirit. Watch this dog.
There's too much strife and division.
It's too much strife and division. That may be other views. You know, look at these resurrection. Hey, and where you gonna get a church, they teach resurrection back and sign one of the miracles that we have. No, that ain't the right person. I'm saying some of y'all are in your sins. So the Christians did not have no what?
They didn't have this.
They didn't have no gifts. We give the head to this, and it was off to that. Oh, that's what he writes, the gift chapter 13, 14, 12, 13, 14. Get it back on track. Yeah. So, okay, I want you to think about it, pray about it, and then you should give me other details.